Welcome to this explainer. Today we're taking a deep dive to level up your Node.js skills. We're going to go all the way from the basic mechanics of an Express application straight through to writing secure, production-ready code, and then we're navigating the brand new Express v5 release. Seriously, whether you're building your very first API or maintaining some massive enterprise backend, mastering these concepts is absolutely essential.
So here is our roadmap for this journey. First, Express foundations and middleware. Second, validating and sanitizing data. Third, hardening security in production. And finally, number 4, the Express v5 era.
All right, level 1, Express, foundations, and middleware. Let's jump right in and establish the core mechanics of how an Express application actually handles the web.
At its core, Express is known as a fast, unopinionated, minimalist web framework for Node.js. But, what does that actually mean for us? Well, it means Express doesn't force you into a specific project structure or tell you exactly how to talk to your database. Its real power, the whole reason it's the absolute backbone of the Node ecosystem, comes entirely from its robust middleware architecture. These middleware functions are basically just pieces of code that hook right into the routing process to modify requests and responses.
Think of middleware like stations on an assembly line. An incoming HTTP request is like raw material entering a factory. It hits that first middleware processing station. Maybe that station logs the request. Then it moves to the next station, the parse a JSON payload, and another to check if the user is authenticated. If everything checks out, it reaches the end of the line, the final route response, which packages everything up and ships it back to the client. It's totally modular, which makes scaling your app a breeze.
Moving right along to level 2, validating and sanitizing data. Let's see what happens to our assembly line when we start handling information from the outside world.
This brings us to the absolute golden rule of web development. You'll hear it constantly across our sources. Never trust user input. I mean it. Whether it's just a well-intentioned user making a typo or a malicious bot trying to inject a script into your database, you have to treat all incoming data as potentially dangerous.
To actually handle this, we rely on middleware packages like Express Validator to scrub that data clean. For example, Trim simply strips away hidden white space. Then you have Escape, which goes a step further and neutralizes HTML entities, stopping cross-site scripting dead in its tracks. And Normalize Email? That's a really great one. It canonicalizes email addresses, meaning an attacker can't just bypass your user limits by adding plus tags to a Gmail address.
And hey, it's not just form fields we need to worry about. We have to actively validate URLs before using res.redirect to prevent what's known as an open redirect. Picture this. Your login route accepts a URL query parameter to bounce the user back to their previous page after logging in. If you blindly pass that input into a redirect function, an attacker can easily craft a link that looks like your domain but silently sends users to a malicious phishing website. Always, always validate that the destination is an approved path.
Okay, level 3, hardening security and production. We're leaving the safety of our local setup and entering the unforgiving reality of the open internet.
Look, there is a massive difference between your development environment and your production environment. Locally, you want verbose error logging, right? Give me all the stack traces in the browser so I can debug. But in production, that same helpful stack trace gives attackers a literal roadmap to your backend architecture. In production, we need minimal fingerprinting, lockdown helmet security headers, and mandatory TLS to encrypt traffic.
To automate a ton of this hardening without writing hundreds of lines of code, we can just drop in the Helmet package. Helmet is basically a collection of middleware that automatically sets critical HTTP headers for you. It sets up a content security policy, enforces strict transport security, and crucially, it hides the X-powered by header. Express naturally broadcasts its presence by default, so hiding this reduces your server's fingerprint. Casual attackers running automated scanners won't immediately know they're dealing with an Express server.
We also absolutely have to secure our session cookies. First off, use generic names instead of the framework defaults, because default names are just another fingerprinting vulnerability. You also need to set them to secure, meaning they only transmit over HTTPS, and you absolutely must set the HTTP-only flag. That flag is your best defense. It blocks client-side JavaScript access, which stops any injected scripts from stealing your user's session tokens.
Beyond cookies, what about authentication routes? For things like login endpoints, we need brute force protection. Using a package like Rate Limiter Flexible, we can track and block repeated, consecutive failed authorization attempts coming from the exact same IP address. If a bot tries to guess a password 100 times in a single minute, the rate limiter just steps in, blocks the IP, and saves your database from getting hammered.
Finally, Level 4, the Express v5 era. It is finally here to modernize the framework after 10 years of beta anticipation.
Now, the developers have said the Express 5 updates are meant to be boring. But boring infrastructure is the best infrastructure. The key takeaways: it officially drops support for Node versions older than 18, it updates core dependencies like path to regex, and it ships with crucial security mitigations, like defaulting the body parser URL encoded depth to 32, which directly patches a known denial of service vulnerability.
One major security change you really need to prepare for is routing. In Express v4, you could use sub-expression regular expressions right in your path definitions. The problem? Complex regex can easily suffer from exponential parsing times, leading to a REDOS, or regular expression denial of service attack. So, in Express v5, regex routing is completely removed. All parameters must be explicitly named, which pushes us to handle input validation safely inside the route logic instead.
Now, v5 also brings a huge quality of life upgrade for async code. In v4, you had to manually catch promise errors and explicitly pass them down to your next function. If you forgot, your app might just silently crash. Express v5 introduces native support that automatically catches returned rejected promises. You literally don't have to manually catch those async errors anymore. It makes your code so much cleaner and far more readable.
They've also done some major spring cleaning by removing old, deprecated methods. The ambiguous res.send status, body is gone. You now use res.status.send. The weird magic string to redirect back is totally gone. And app.del is officially replaced by the standard app.delete. It's all about forcing a much more predictable, consistent API for modern code bases.
By mastering these foundations, understanding how middleware acts as an assembly line, locking down your user inputs, hardening your production HTTP headers, and embracing the new v5 features, you're not just writing backend code anymore. You're engineering resilient systems. So the only question left for you to consider is, with Express v5 officially out in the wild, is your code base actually ready for the upgrade? Time to start auditing those dependencies, and happy coding.